picture this. You're sitting at your desk, maybe nursing your third cup of coffee for the day.
Or your fourth.
Right, or your fourth. The glow of the monitor is really starting to strain your eyes. You glance at your inbox, and there is.
The email.
A new email from the journal editor.
Yeah.
The subject line is some variation of decision on your manuscript. And we all know that universal moment of pure, unadulterated dread.
Oh, absolutely.
Your stomach drops, your heart rate spikes, and you prepare yourself to read this, comprehensive list of reasons why the research you just poured years of your life into is somehow fundamentally flawed.
It is a uniquely academic form of torture, honestly. I mean, you double-click that PDF and suddenly you are face-to-face with the mythical, eternally unimpressed reviewer 2.
Yes, reviewer 2.
They've dismantled your methodology, they've questioned your sample size, and they've completely just missed the point of your conclusion.
And your immediate physiological response is usually fight or flight, which is exactly why we are here today. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are jumping into a fascinating collection of sources today, expert guidelines, established psychological frameworks, and some highly specific tactical notes.
Yeah, and all of it is focused on a single vital skill: how to respond to peer reviewer comments like a true professional.
Because it's a critical skill, right?
Yeah.
But it's one that is rarely taught systematically in grad school. Yet it dictates so much of a researcher's career trajectory and, frankly, their mental well-being.
Completely agree.
So our mission for this deep dive isn't just to help you survive the peer review process with your sanity intact. We want to show you how mastering the response to reviewers document is actually your secret weapon to academic success.
It really is. It's the bridge between a manuscript that gets stuck in revision purgatory and a published, highly impactful paper. And what's fascinating here is a piece of empirical evidence from our sources that completely flips the script on how we view this whole agonizing process.
Oh, right, the citation data.
Exactly. We tend to think that a paper being quickly accepted with minimal revisions is the ultimate goal, the holy grail, right? But the data shows something entirely different. Manuscripts that go through multiple, grueling rounds of peer review actually receive significantly higher citation counts than papers that are swiftly ushered through to publication.
See, that shifts the entire perspective. If revisions equal citations, then getting dragged over the coals by reviewers isn't a punishment.
No, not at all.
It's actually the mechanism that makes the paper more successful in the long run.
That is exactly what the data suggests. The crucible of review forces clarity. A decision of revise and resubmit or major revisions feels like a crushing blow in the moment, but it is a massive victory.
Because you aren't rejected.
Exactly. It means you're still in the game.
Yeah.
The editor is essentially giving you a platform to bulletproof your study. You just have to navigate the revision process strategically rather than emotionally.
But before we can get in there and fix the science, we have to fix that immediate emotional reaction. Because when you read a critique that feels, totally ill-informed or biased or just plain lazy,
Which happens a lot.
right, the absolute first instinct is to fire back a defensive, highly aggressive email explaining exactly why the reviewer is wrong.
Well, it's human nature to defend your work. And that brings us to the C in the CALM framework, which was designed specifically for this highly charged situation.
Cole.
Yes, C-A-L-M. The C stands for comprehend, but practically it means keep your cool.
Easier said than done when someone is actively attacking a methodology you spent 18 months designing.
Precisely. Which is why the framework insists that when that decision letter arrives, you must not succumb to the pressure to reply or even begin drafting a reply immediately. You read the feedback to comprehend the scope of the damage, and then you step away.
Just close the laptop.
You sleep on it. You have to let those initial defensive emotions subside. If you try to respond while your heart rate is still elevated, you'll inevitably send an impulsive, thinly veiled, passive-aggressive response that will permanently sour your relationship with the editor.
Okay, let's unpack this because William Stafford Noble's 10 Simple Rules for Responding to Reviewers has the perfect tactical application for this emotional phase. Specifically, his Rule 10, which states, write the response twice.
Rule 10 is deeply pragmatic because it acknowledges the psychology of the researcher. You cannot just suppress the frustration.
You really can't. Have you ever heard of a burn letter?
A burn letter.
Yeah, it's that letter you write to a toxic ex where you just let them have it. You pour all your anger, all your frustration, all your perceived injustices onto the page. But the fundamental rule is you never ever send it.
A venting draft.
Yes. That first draft is your burn letter to reviewer 2. You can type in all caps. You can question their reading comprehension. You can complain about how unfair the entire academic publishing apparatus is. You get all that venom out of your system on a document that will never see the light of day.
And that's so important. Early career researchers especially need to process those feelings of unfairness. If they don't write the burn letter, that resentment tends to leak into their actual response document in the form of, defensive language or subtle condescension.
And editors can spot that a mile away.
Oh, instantly.
Yeah.
So you vent, then you wait a few days, you open a completely blank document, and you start your second draft. This is the ultra-polite, meticulously organized, objective document that the reviewers and the editor will actually evaluate.
Okay, so we've burned the angry draft, we've slept on it, and our heart rate is back to normal. But how do we actually transition from that emotional state into addressing the feedback? Especially when you're staring at a comment where the reviewer has completely spectacularly missed the point of what you wrote.
This is where we have to adopt a very specific mindset. And it requires checking your ego completely at the door. We look to Noble's Rule 3 here. Accept the blame.
Wait, I have to push back on this a little bit on behalf of everyone listening who is rolling their eyes right now. If a reviewer clearly just skimmed the paper, like if the answer to their question is explicitly stated in paragraph 2 and they just missed it because they were reading my paper on a flight at midnight, I still have to take the blame. Isn't that just rewarding bad behavior?
I know, it feels incredibly unjust in the moment. But we have to look at the underlying logic of this rule. You must never assume the reviewer is stupid or acting in bad faith. You have to view them as a proxy for your future audience.
A proxy.
Yes. If this highly educated peer reviewer misunderstood your point or glossed over a detail, they have just exposed a vulnerability in your writing. Because if they missed it, a significant percentage of your future readers will definitely miss it too.
So they're basically stress testing the readability of the paper. If it's not skim-proof, it's broken.
Exactly. Even if you believe your original text was crystal clear, your job is to apologize for the lack of clarity, revise the text to make it absolutely unmistakable, maybe add a bold heading or break up a long paragraph and then quote that revision in your response.
So you're fixing it for everyone.
You are fixing the manuscript for the broader scientific community, not just to appease one grumpy reviewer. Now, having said that, if a comment genuinely makes no sense at all, like they're referencing a completely different experiment, our sources note that it is completely professional to politely state that you do not understand what they are asking.
But admitting fault only works for misunderstandings. What happens when the reviewer's premise is actually flawed? What if they're telling me to do an analysis that is statistically inappropriate for my study? I can't just apologize and do bad science to make them happy.
No, you absolutely cannot compromise the integrity of the research. And that brings us to the A in the CALM framework advocate. The peer review process is supposed to be a rigorous dialogue. You are allowed to politely disagree, but you must have a rock-solid, evidence-backed counter-argument. You defend with evidence, not ego.
Let's ground this in the specific example mentioned in the sources, because I think it highlights the tension perfectly. The classic Table 1 issue in clinical papers.
Ah, yes, Table 1. This usually describes the baseline characteristics of your study's cohort. It lists things like the average age, gender breakdown, or baseline health metrics of the people in your study.
Right.
And very often, a reviewer will demand that you add p-values to this table to compare the groups.
Because reviewers are trained to look for statistical significance everywhere. If there are numbers, they want a p-value attached to them.
But statistically speaking, adding p-values to a baseline characteristics table is usually inappropriate. You're simply describing who is in the cohort. You aren't testing a hypothesis yet. Furthermore, our sources point out that statistical inference in a baseline table can provide highly misleading information regarding confounders.
Wait, let's break that down for those of us who aren't biostatisticians. What do you mean by misleading info regarding confounders? How does a p-value actually break the logic here?
Okay, let's say you're testing a new heart medication. You have a treatment group and a placebo group. In Table 1, you list their baseline traits. Group A happens to have an average age of 60, and Group B has an average age of 65.
Got it.
If you run a p-value on that, it might scream statistically significant difference.
Which implies that the drug is somehow causing the age difference, which is nonsense.
Exactly. We aren't testing if the drug causes aging. Age is just a confounding variable, a background factor that might skew the results. We don't care if the age difference is statistically significant. We only care that the difference exists so we can adjust our final math to account for it.
Oh, I see.
Putting a p-value there confuses a simple description of the patients with the actual hypothesis test of the drug.
That makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you explain that to a reviewer who thinks they caught a flaw without sounding like you are lecturing them on basic statistics?
You use the advocate mindset. A professional response strips out all the condescension. You write something like, we respectfully prefer not to add p-values to Table 1 because this table describes the cohort rather than testing hypotheses. Furthermore, statistical inference here can provide misleading information regarding confounding variables, which we have adjusted for in our primary analysis.
We respectfully prefer not to. It's firm, it's rooted entirely in methodology, and it doesn't attack their statistical competence.
You are advocating for the structural integrity of your paper using sound logic. You become the defender of the science, not the defender of your own ego.
Now, I imagine a major risk here is cognitive overload.
Yeah.
If I'm an editor or a reviewer and I open a response document that is a 15-page unformatted wall of text, I'm going to be frustrated and biased against the author before I even read a single word.
Oh, absolutely.
So how do the sources recommend reducing that visual friction?
The physical design of this document is incredibly important. First, we look at the NCBI guidelines regarding gratitude. A very common mistake anxious authors make is trying to flatter the reviewer by thanking them profusely at the beginning of every single comment.
Like, thank you for this insightful comment over and over.
Yes, thank you for this brilliant observation 50 times down the page.
It starts to sound a bit sycophantic.
It does, and more importantly, it wastes the reviewer's time. They have to wade through repetitive flattery to find your actual scientific response. The guideline is to consolidate your gratitude. Write a short, sincere introduction, thanking the editor and the reviewers once at the very beginning of the response letter.
Just a blanket thank you.
Right. Acknowledge that their feedback improved the paper. After that, drop the pleasantries and get straight to business.
What about the visual layout? If we are dealing with multiple reviewers and dozens of comments, how do we keep it from turning into a confusing mess?
You need to interleave the complete set of reviews with your responses. Keep the reviewer's original comment in bold black text. Then drop down a line and put your response in standard text.
Okay, simple enough.
To make it even clearer, use typography and color coding as visual waypoints. If you are inserting revised text from the manuscript into your response, put Reviewer 1's changes in red font and Reviewer 2's changes in blue font.
That immediately lowers the friction. A sea of black text is intimidating. But if I can scan a document and instantly see the red and blue blocks, it visually signals to the editor, look at all the tangible work I did.
And to make it even easier to process, we apply Noble's Rule 7. Start every single response with a direct stance. Before you give any background, context, or methodological defense, your first words should be, I agree, I disagree, yes or no.
Don't bury the lead at the end of a rambling paragraph. Give them the conclusion, then the justification.
Exactly. Tell them immediately if you complied with their request or if you are pushing back.
Here's where it gets really interesting, at least to me, because there is a very strict rule in the sources about avoiding lazy references. A lazy reference is when a reviewer asks you to clarify a point, and you respond by just typing fixed in manuscript, or see revised text on lines 25 to 26.
The absolute bane of a reviewer's existence.
When I was reading this, I immediately thought of it like an all-inclusive resort.
An all-inclusive resort.
Yeah. Think about it. The whole appeal of an all-inclusive resort is that you never have to leave the property to get what you need. You want a drink. It's right there. You want a towel. Right there. A good response document has to be an all-inclusive resort for the reviewer.
I love that analogy.
But it's not just about convenience. It's about risk management. It's like making a reviewer leave the safety of the resort to go eat at a sketchy restaurant in the jungle. The longer they wander around the main manuscript on their own trying to find the one sentence you changed, the more likely they are to get food poisoning, meaning they might find entirely new things to complain about that they didn't even notice in round one.
The moment they leave your resort to go searching through the manuscript jungle, you lose control of the narrative. They go to line 25 to check your fix, but on the way, they spot a typo on page 4, or they suddenly decide they don't like a citation on page 5. You are essentially inviting them to open a brand new audit of your work.
So how do we keep them comfortably inside the response document?
By making it completely self-contained. You must copy and paste the exact revised text block directly into the response sheet, right underneath your explanation. Give them the old text, give them the new text, and highlight the changes.
Even if it's long.
Even if it is a massive paragraph, put it right there on the page. Do not give them a reason to open the full manuscript unless absolutely necessary.
Keep them at the resort. Do not let them wander back into the jungle.
Right.
So these formatting rules work beautifully in a perfect world where reviewers are reasonable and constructive. But let's be real, the peer review process often descends into chaos. What happens when we are dealing with outright hostility?
It is an unfortunate reality of the process. Reviewers are often overwhelmed, unpaid, and reviewing papers late at night. Sometimes that bleeds into their tone. When dealing with hostile or rude reviewers, the golden rule from our sources is this: ignore the tone, answer the science.
That is incredibly difficult to do.
It is, but you have to mentally separate their emotional outburst from the core content of their critique. Answer their scientific points thoroughly and as politely as you would anyone else.
But what if it crosses a line into downright abusive territory? Like, they aren't just being a bit prickly, they're attacking the authors personally. Or there is a glaring, obvious conflict of interest. If a competitor is reviewing my paper and trying to tank it, do I still just smile and color code my response?
In cases of severe conflict of interest or genuine abuse, no. But you also do not confront them in the response sheet.
Because that document is part of the official record of the revision.
Exactly. Getting into a mudslinging match there is deeply unprofessional. Instead, you handle it through back channels. You write a separate confidential letter directly to the journal editor.
And what can the editor actually do about it? Are they just a mail clerk passing documents back and forth, or do they have real authority here?
Editors have the ultimate authority. They are outsourcing the critique, but they retain the veto power. If you lay out a calm, evidence-based case for why a review is abusive or heavily biased, the editor can choose to redact those specific hostile comments before passing them back to you.
Oh, wow. I didn't know they could redact things.
They absolutely can. They can recruit entirely new reviewers to replace the biased one, or they can discount that abusive review entirely from their final decision-making process. The editor is the referee. You just have to know how to call them over to the sidelines quietly.
Okay, what about a situation where the reviewers aren't rude, but they're completely contradicting each other? Say reviewer A says, this section is too brief. You need to expand it by 3 paragraphs to cover the historical context. And reviewer B says, this manuscript is way too long. You need to cut the historical context to meet journal guidelines. You literally cannot satisfy both of them.
When you receive conflicting advice, you cannot just quietly pick your favorite reviewer, implement their advice, and ignore the other. You must address the contradiction head-on in your response sheet.
How do you do that without throwing one of them under the bus? You can't just say, well, reviewer A is smarter than reviewer B.
No, definitely not. You state the conflict clearly and neutrally. You might write, while reviewer A requested expansion of this section, reviewer B noted the need for brevity. By stating it openly, you show the editor that you are trapped in a bind, and then you propose a balanced compromise.
What does a typical compromise look like in that scenario?
The classic solution is utilizing supplementary materials. You can move the detailed, expanded text that reviewer A wanted into an appendix. This way, the main manuscript remains concise, satisfying reviewer B, but the nuanced details are still available for anyone who wants them, satisfying reviewer A.
That's a great workaround.
And if the conflict is so substantial that a compromise seems impossible, like they fundamentally disagree on the core methodology, you can use that confidential letter to seek the editor's direct mediation before you even begin the revision.
So what does this all mean? We've gone from the initial panic of the email notification through the emotional regulation of the Column framework into the tactical formatting of color codes and all-inclusive response documents, all the way to navigating abusive or contradictory reviewers. How do we wrap this all up into a neat bow for the editor?
It all comes down to presenting a final, professional resubmission package that fundamentally respects a busy editor's workflow. Remember, they're managing dozens of papers simultaneously. According to the guidelines, this package should contain exactly 4 separate components, each serving a specific psychological and practical purpose.
Let's walk through them. Why do they need 4 different documents?
First, you provide a brief, polite cover letter. This isn't your response sheet. This is the 30,000-foot view. It is a quick handshake thanking the editor for the opportunity to resubmit and briefly summarizing the major changes to orient them.
Okay, that's one.
Second, you attach the point-by-point response document. This is the main event. Self-contained, structured, color-coded, with clear stances and polite advocacy. This is where you neutralize the reviewer's complaints.
The all-inclusive resort.
Exactly. Third, you provide the tracked changes document. This is your full manuscript, but with every single addition and deletion clearly visible. The editor likely won't read this cover to cover, but it acts as an insurance policy. If they want to verify how a specific change looks in the broader context of the paper, they have the audit trail right there.
And the fourth.
And fourth, you provide the clean manuscript. This is the pristine final version of your paper, incorporating all the changes, completely ready for publication.
By separating them, you let the editor engage with the revision on whatever level of detail they need at that moment. And I think the biggest takeaway for you, listening right now, is that while peer review can often feel like a deeply personal attack on your competence, it doesn't have to be. By utilizing frameworks like CALM to detach emotionally and treating the formatting of your response as a strategic tool to reduce cognitive load, you can turn a dreaded hurdle into a collaborative stepping stone.
Absolutely.
You are actively working with the system to publish better, clearer, and as the data showed us at the very beginning, more highly cited science.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, well, it leaves us with a rather profound philosophical question about the nature of science itself.
Oh, where does the philosophy come in?
Think about the sheer volume of changes we just discussed. If a published paper is so heavily shaped, cut, and molded by the rigorous demands of reviewer 1, the contradictions of reviewer 2, and the final arbitration of the editor who is the true author of the final science. We put the original researchers' names at the top of the page, but is modern academic publishing actually a solo endeavor? Or is every single published paper secretly a massive, uncredited group project?
That is going to keep me up at night. The invisible hands shaping human knowledge, hidden in the margins of a Word document, something to ponder the next time you're sitting at your desk nursing that coffee and you see that little notification pop up in your inbox, just waiting for the group project to begin.